happening today? That's right, Election Day is finally here! And I don't know what you had planned tonight, but it's time to cancel it and change it because you should be hanging out with me on Twitch tonight. We're gonna be watching the results roll in. It's gonna be so much fun hanging out with your fellow nerds, so I would love to see you there. Now in today's video, I'm going to help you understand how to interpret the results as they're rolling in and like what they predict as the night goes on. And we're also gonna recap the events from over the weekend on the campaign trail. It is impossible to recap the weekend's events without mentioning the horrific tragedy that took place in Vancouver. The Filipino community held this festival that was supposed to be a day of joy and celebration of culture, and it ended in just devastating heartbreak and tragedy. And I just want to say to Canada's Filipino community that all of us are with you today. We're thinking of you. I'm so sorry this happened. And if any of you have the means, please consider heading to filipinobc.com to make a donation. Jagmeet Singh was actually at this festival up until 15 minutes before the attack, and listening to him speak about this yesterday was just absolutely heartbreaking.
I keep on thinking about the kids that I met, the joy. I was there literally minutes before this happened, and I can't stop thinking about how much happiness was there, how much it was a family event. People were so positive and so joyful, and then to have such a horrific thing happen, I keep on replaying it.
Mark Carney also addressed the nation about this in his capacity as Prime Minister and attended a vigil where he shared condolences and spent time with the community. Pierre Poilievre and his wife also spoke at a Filipino church in Mississauga to offer their condolences. But his party also came under fire yesterday because they appeared to co-post this video that really politicized the events in Vancouver and used it as a reason to push people to vote Conservative, which was seen as pretty gross by a lot of people. This tragedy really casts a shadow over this final day of campaigning. It's normally a day where there's lots of energy and leaders are trying to mobilize and meet as many people as possible and travel a ton. And we saw them sort of pare down their schedules, especially in the morning, to just spend some time with the community and grieve. But ultimately, they did get back to campaigning and to getting their messages out there because today, Canadians and our leaders are voting. Jagmeet Singh apparently voted already in the advance polls, but we got this image of Pierre Poilievre voting with his wife today, and Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet also cast his ballot. At the time I'm filming this, Carney has not voted yet. Mark? Don't forget. We also got a last-minute endorsement from US President Donald Trump for himself. Yeah, he said that Canadians should elect to become the 51st state. Really, really cool and respectful thing to say on our election day, Trump. What a world we live in. Speaking of that world, in news that surprises literally no one, the Financial Times also just reported that Canadians have been bombarded with right-wing content on Elon Musk's X ahead of the election, showing that the sentiment about Mark Carney is far more negative on X than it is about Pierre Poilievre. Something that anyone who has scrolled on X for more than 5 minutes could also confirm for you. But yeah, this doesn't seem super democratic. The last bit of news that I'm going to mention from the weekend on the campaign trail before I tell you guys how you should interpret the results tonight so that you can impress all your friends with how smart you are, is that Doug Ford is really coming after Poilievre. The girlies are fighting. When asked about the fact that Poilievre and Doug Ford have never really met and how that's possible, Ford said, quote, "You're gonna have to ask him. I think 7 years ago I met him once in Ottawa, a breakfast right after one of my events, but we never really talked there." When pressed on the fact that Poilievre doesn't really have a relationship with the premier in Nova Scotia either, Ford added, "Yeah, not at all, or local mayors or anyone. I don't understand it." Oh my God, the knives are already out. Ford also said that after Poilievre called him because people had told him to reach out, that he told Poilievre that he should focus on the tariffs. Quote, "It's the tariffs, stupid." And he can't figure out why Poilievre didn't pivot to that. So yeah, just the last bout of Conservative infighting to carry us into Election Day.
You shit whore! You are f***ing gay 19 times! You bitch!
Speaking of which, want to be the smartest one of your friends tonight? I mean, first of all, you should watch my Twitch stream because that is what all of the smartest people are doing tonight. But let me tell you how you can interpret the results as they start to roll in and what needs to happen for each party to get the kind of victory that they want to see. So the first results that are going to roll in are going to be coming from Atlantic Canada. What you're going to want to look at here is the vote share according to David Coletto from Abacus Data. If the Liberal vote share is high, like 58 to 60%, that's a signal they're doing really well as like a starting point and will likely hold or even pick up a few seats in Atlantic Canada. But if there's closer races with tighter margins than expected, that could be a signal that something else is happening. You'll also want to see what's happening in Halifax because that will be the first predictor of how the NDP is doing. They don't have a seat there, but they have done well there in the past, so if their vote really craters there, that doesn't bode super well for them. The next chunk of results to come in is where the election might actually be decided. A result that Liberals will be happy with in Quebec is if they swipe seats from the bloc, so if they take like 5 to 10 bloc seats, that could signal they're on their way to a majority. But if the bloc manages to hold most of their seats, that could be a different kind of sign for the Liberals. The other thing to watch for here is, do the Conservatives find some opportunities and do they hold their votes there? One thing you're going to get sick of hearing tonight is people saying, quote, vote rich Ontario. Quebec has 78 seats and Ontario has 122 because this is where most Canadians live. There's basically no way for the Conservatives to form government to win this election if they don't make significant gains in Ontario. They would need to win the vast majority of seats in Ontario and sweep the 905 around Toronto and pick up a few seats in Ottawa. This is where you're going to hear people talk about something called vote efficiency. See, in the last two elections, the Conservatives actually won more votes, individual votes, than the Liberals. But that's because they win several of their ridings by massive margins. Whereas the votes around Toronto, for example, tend not to be won by huge margins. So even if the Liberals get less of the overall share of individual votes, if those votes are in the right places, which is voter efficiency, then you can win an election despite not having the majority of the votes, the majority of the individual votes. Does that make sense? Another little story to watch here is that the Conservatives have been chasing NDP seats in southwestern Ontario and northern Ontario, so seeing how that goes could be a bit of an indicator for what happens in the interior of BC. All right, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Conservative strongholds. Less so Manitoba, which currently has an NDP premier. But if the polls are right, the Liberals are doing way better than they've done in a while in these areas. In 2021, the Conservatives won every single seat in Saskatchewan, but there was some speculation the Liberals could pick up 1 or 2 seats in Regina and Saskatoon. And as you can see on the 338 Canada federal projections here, the Liberals are actually doing really well in Manitoba as well. There's not a ton to watch for in Alberta. I think we know by and large how most of the 37 seats in that province are going to go. But there's a few interesting ridings like the seats that the NDP currently holds in the province, and we'll see if the Liberals manage to pick any up too. Now, by the time the BC results roll in, we'll probably know who's won the election, but that doesn't mean that there won't be some really interesting stories coming out of that province. First of all, Singh is at risk of losing his seat in Burnaby, so that's something to watch. BC is where we'll probably figure out if the NDP loses party status. If they don't get at least 12 seats tonight, they will lose that. And if they lose that, they lose access to funds and all kinds of resources, so they really don't want that to happen. Also, depending on how the rest of the night goes, BC is where we could learn if the Liberals form a majority or a minority government. To form a majority government, the Liberals have to win 172 seats tonight, so that's the number to watch for on that end of things. If the Liberals win a majority government, they get 2 things out of it. They don't have to worry about non-confidence votes from opposition MPs. If they're outnumbered by opposition MPs, they can topple the government and send us back to the polls early before the end of that 4-year mandate. And they don't need to cooperate with the other parties to get legislation passed. So if they have a minority government, they need a few votes from other MPs from other parties to be able to pass legislation. But if they have a majority, they can just do it on their own as Liberals. As for Nunavut, the Northwest Territories, and the Yukon, they each have 1 seat in the House of Commons, so they don't make a huge difference in terms of the makeup of the government, but they're still really important voices, especially when you consider all of the chatter about the Arctic these days. So it'll be interesting to see who ends up representing these regions. Okay, that's it. That's everything you need to know. It's all happening. So I will see you guys hopefully on Twitch later tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. If not, I hope you have a great night regardless. Enjoy watching democracy in action. It is very cool that we are privileged enough to live in a society where our voices do matter. I know if we had electoral reform, maybe they'd matter a little more, but it's really special and I am really looking forward to it. And I do want to thank all of you who trusted me to be be a voice helping you stay informed in this election campaign. It's been really fun for me, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. So hopefully I'll see you tonight. And until then, what do you think of all this?